What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Us. I'm Clarence.
JB.
And I'm Terrence.
How's everybody doing today?
It's another one of them long ones.
One of those long ones.
I'm enjoying the fall.
I'm with you right there. I do like the cooler temperatures. It's kind of nice.
We just had a whole hurricane. I didn't enjoy that.
You didn't enjoy that? Oh,
that's what that was out there?
Yeah, that's what they said. Hurricane Zeta? Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Bringing all the wind and the rain? I do know it did start an earlier process. It started an earlier process of blowing off all the leaves. So it looks like yard work is in the forecast here soon.
Well, she cleaned up my car, so.
Hey, well, that's not too bad. Now get to the car wash, right?
All right.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. So today's topic, we are actually discussing stacking the resume. So we kind of touched on it a little bit last week with our interview with Raven, and kind of discussing, basically like the overqualified, underqualified. I thought it was a pretty good topic to kind of, add a little bit onto, or at least kind of expand on. So basically what we mean when we say stacking a resume is like, that ambition, kind of maybe like that passion to kind of get, different degrees, different certifications, different, pretty much anything, that just basically takes you from that one page to maybe 10 or 15, which I'm pretty sure we have some folks out there who might be pretty who have those lengthy resumes.
Who is turning in 10 to 15 page resumes though?
I mean, I've seen 5, so I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't see 10, and I think some of them were a little bit over the top. Of course, like, instead of kind of summarizing, bullet points, it was more like paragraphs per, position, which was, I guess, cool, but, sometimes it could be a little bit of fluff, but yes.
A lot of that stuff can be handled, during the interview process. It's like, I see you did such and such here. Tell me about it. It's usually how interviews go. So it's like, I just don't get the, let me give you all the information of every single thing I did type setup.
No, I totally agree. But, it could also be like a better way to kind of take notes, because it could be something if you haven't worked on it in a while, or, might not be as relevant as it was at one time. You kind of can use it to fall back on. So
that's what you put at the bottom of the resume, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You're going to stack a resume.
That's true. So I guess like what I kind of just, kind of jumpstarts the discussion actually. So maybe not the 10 or 15.
I'm a little eager.
Yeah, but like do you all feel like it's a benefit to stacking the resume?
Well, you already know my stance. I'm all for stacking a resume, but to the point where you're trying to put every job that you've ever done in your life on a resume, yeah, no. Put the information that's relevant to the position that you're trying to apply for. If you're applying for a software developer position, you being a sysadmin, it's helpful to know that you have those skills, but you can probably put that at the bottom of it, or you can just bring it up during the interview process. You don't need to have that on there. Right. If you have certs that are referencing the sysadmin, same thing.
Right.
Those certs don't really do much for, that particular position. So, yeah.
One thing to kind of expand on your thought is that I heard a long time ago that, you're it's okay to have multiple resumes. So you could have your own personal that you just keep a record of all your stuff. But as JB said, when you're applying for certain positions or opportunities, you kind of tone down on to what actually, or lock in on what the position is about, and kind of make it so that, it shows the experience for that actual position and not, all of the others.
Exactly. What you thinking, T-Man? What you got?
So can we go back over what actually stacking the resume is? Is that just more of getting things or doing activities just to put it on your resume? Is that what you?
So, yeah. Oh, go ahead, JB.
Yes and no. So stacking resume is like, last week we talked to Raven, and she was saying that, what was it, CISSP?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, it's she's getting a cert that's, you know, for her particular field that she's in. And so that could be considered stacked on the resume, but some people take it overboard and they list certs that aren't relevant to, you know, a particular position that they. And it's all about figuring out what works best for the resume for the job that you're trying to apply for.
Right. So if I'm taking you all's definition correctly, then no, I do not agree with stacking a resume. I don't agree with like putting a whole bunch of stuff that's not that's hard to. I do believe skills transfer over, but I do believe that the people in HR and the people who are reviewing your resumes, they're reviewing a lot. So I believe that it's better for your resume to be clean, clear, as one main characteristic as it should have. A second characteristic that it should have is having all the keywords within your resume that's going to pull them out, to pull you out of the search that they're doing. So a lot of times these recruiters are doing queries on job databases or whatever HR database they have, and they're looking for keywords. So you need to know what are the keywords or try to get a good idea of what those things were. A lot of times it's buzzwords. There's meaning behind those buzzwords and there's truth behind those buzzwords as well, but you want to make sure that you have those keywords. And then thirdly, just making sure that it reads well and it's quick and to the point and it gets you into the door. So what gets you into the door? One of the things for me that I've seen that all of my mentors, a good number of my mentors have mentioned, is just in the beginning, making sure in a lot of my resume formats, I have like just like really like a 1 to 2 line sentence that just basically summarizes you up into what you bring to the table and why they should want to interview you. Yeah. And then everything else is just building up and basically justifying that those two summarized sentences in the top. And so I do believe that it comes to a point where there's no need for you to have 3 or 4 or 5 page resume. I say 1 to 2. Yeah. I would really say 1. So the only reason, the only time I've seen resumes go longer is in the academic field. If you're going to be a professor, a lot of times they have their different publications at the end, and then at that, I don't even think you call that a resume. I forgot like the official term for that, but that's actually something different. But yes, I do believe in doing things that give you the experience to help you meet the goals that you want. So like those things that you put in a resume, and I do believe in having a master resume where with all your experiences on there, and then you can pull from those what are relevant to make your resume for that current position. I do believe that one resume does not fit all positions, and it's not necessarily that you're lying. It's just that you're putting up that information because they're not. A lot of times, sometimes resumes guide your interview, or at least one of your many interviews within the process, and so put those experiences up that you want to strike conversations within one of those interviews. When you're kind of like starting out, you have to put everything there because you're just fighting for experience to begin with. So you're putting even volunteer work up there. You're putting all the different activities to just show that you can work well with teams, and because you might not have as much hands-on experience. But as you go on in within your career, you're going to have all these options, and then kind of need to start cutting some of that stuff out.
Yeah, agreed.
And I mean, it may even be that, if you're putting different positions that you've taken, and one position was, a year off from another position, they will probably ask about that, but that's where you just say, oh, that position that I had in between these two wasn't really relevant to this particular position, but I can tell you about it if you want to know. Like you can have those candid conversations with the recruiters and things like that. And also when you really stack your resume, people who are looking at these resumes, if they're actually looking at the physical copy, they're only spending like quick glances and looking at your resume. And it's like, it's like a yes, no type of pile. And then once they get their yeses, now it's like, all right, let me delve into, what's actually on this resume.
Right.
So if you're like, oh, like I had a guy who, he's like, yeah, I got a home Docker set up and this and that. That stuff matters because the particular position he was looking for was a DevOps position. And so it's like, oh, you're taking the initiative to do these things at home. makes sense.
Right.
But if
Right.
you're like, oh, I set up Putty a couple times on, all the home computers. Okay. Well, this
Right.
is a software developer position.
Right.
I appreciate that you know how to connect to another computer remotely, but, that's about it.
That's true. That's true. I guess one thing to kind of keep in mind, though, or at least kind of maybe add. I don't want to go against anything that you all said,
You
but
can. It's perfectly fine. It actually makes for a great episode.
Let's see
Debate.
what bus. Yeah, I feel a debate where it coming. No, but what I was gonna say, or at least add, is that like how you all have mentioned, kind of like that master resume. That still could come in handy because when you're filling out an application, when they ask you to upload your resume, you might want to use that just so because a lot of opportunity websites they might use that and autofill your work history. So you might still need that just for if they like as JB said, if there's a gap or something in that's what's related to the actual position. Well, if you upload your master resume first to at least get all your work history populated, then at the end, you need to add any other documents, that's when you might want to add your, actual official resume that relates to that specific job. But at least, that way it keeps you from having to fill out all of that information.
Agreed. And another good thing about that is that it's with the technology now, the companies are doing research on you. They're doing Google searches on you. Have that website. The domains nowadays cost anywhere from $3 to $10, maybe $15, but you can get a resume for $5 depending on which domain you have. Get that website up, and it could be something simple like a GitLab pages where you're just using or GitHub pages. Which one is GitHub? Well, which
GitHub.io.
No, which one is the website? Is it Pages? GitLab is Pages. GitHub is
IO.
That's what it is for the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Well, yeah, so do those to where you can simply have...
Yeah, GitHub.io. It's GitHub Pages, but if you just do GitHub.io, it takes you to pages.github.com.
Right? I mix them the two up.
I just looked it up.
Oh, you just... Thank you. So which one? Say it again. So GitHub is which one? Basically, they give you a free website, but we'll go ahead.
Yeah. It's pages.github.com.
Okay. And then GitLab is Pages too then?
No, I think GitLab is more like your local kind of instance, but GitHub is kind of like your global, right?
No. GitLab is another offering similar. It's a whole nother company.
Yeah.
I was just talking about the webs, like the feature to do the website. But anyway, we'll help. Sorry, you all. But so basically, you can use you can just use a simple Jekyll theme there and just deploy a free website and then tie your domain there, and then there you can for sure have your your entire history. And another good thing is even for most of these online applications, they do ask for a timeline. If you haven't worked for a certain time frame, they like freak out because they're like, oh, what were you doing during this time?
Right. Yeah.
But so there's most of the time there's a way where you can show every place you've worked at in a relevant position or in the past X amount of years, and then if they see that you worked at a place of interest, they're going to ask you about it and what ask for different experiences there, or they'll even reach out to that company, and so that could be something to where they know that this company used a lot of similar technologies that we've used. Why did you leave there, and what was your experiences there? What projects you worked there as well?
Right. That's true.
I definitely believe in keeping it all together. I definitely believe in having a master one, but I don't believe that each job you apply for should have all the things. But then again, everyone's different. If you've been working for 2 years, you're probably gonna put everything on there. If you've been working for 5, 10 years,
I worked at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess too, one thing that also kind of encourages that it's also dependent on the position too, and maybe it might be in the job responsibilities and the duties, but it might call for you to put up everything. So then that way they could kind of see, like, even if you didn't do anything core to that particular position, it might have been some concepts that they picked up on or that they might be familiar with that they see in your other experiences that could say, oh, well, even though even though you don't have this, well, you did kind of do something similar. So you at least maybe have the concept down, or, thought process of how to actually solve the problem and that kind of thing too.
So Clarence, do you believe in stacking the resume, or do you put everything on there when you submit?
I'm starting to feel like
I did. So
last episode he said he was getting he was thinking about going to get his certs and stuff.
But that's what you mean by stacking the resume?
I mean, yeah, well, that's kind of like what the gist of it was when of stacking the resume. But to answer your question, so in the years prior, because I felt like I was kind of still growing and I didn't really I didn't really have a focus. I did kind of, add a lot of stuff. I don't have more than 2 pages, but, I kind of kept it, to that kind of limit. But I did put that because some of the positions that I was applying for, as I was kind of just saying, is that I didn't have direct experience for that particular technology or that particular skill set, but I had experiences that were similar in a certain way that, that those experiences could be used or improved on. And a lot of times too, what I have learned too is that if you don't have anything specific to that, sometimes there are things that you have done in the past that could be, actual experiences that are needed, or it's missing, they don't have that guy or that person to do, X, Y, and Z, but because you've done that, well, now you've kind of promoted yourself because what you were going for. They might say, well, wow, we really needed somebody who knew this, so I'm glad that you had this on your resume and then we could talk to you about it, because that might actually be a real need at the time for that company.
So what you saying that though, what if it's something that,
if it's something you don't really like?
I mean, oh yeah, I did unit testing for this job, once upon a time back in the day, but you didn't really like doing that unit testing. True. And now they're like, we really need a unit testing guy. Do you mind being it? True. And you like, I want the job, but do I want to do unit testing? Now you got that personal dilemma.
Y'all are developers. Y'all all should be doing unit testing. All of you.
Doing unit testing. But if I want that to be my main job.
So I see it in 2 ways. Yes, it could be something really that you really weren't proud of or you really didn't like in the past, and you might still not like it, there in the future. But there is also a chance that what they do with unit testing at their company is way better and way, enhanced, that you might actually like it. You get a chance to see a different side of it. So you actually grow interest in it. So, I mean, yeah, it's a pick and choose. I think sometimes I don't think the writer side that I just mentioned is always the case, because if you didn't like it, you probably won't like it, and you'll find that at the other company it's just as bad. So you don't want to continue to do it. But there is that chance that it could be something different, or even just it could be a way that if you didn't like it, that could be your time to offer suggestions to make it better. You hated it enough to know the things you dislike. So if you ask them about, I guess perfect point is that if they do need that, and you might be able to ask them how their processes work, and if you kind of see the similarities to the stuff that you didn't like, you can also start to plug in those suggestions to make it better, which they might have never considered, or again, it's a missing void. So they you could bring that to them.
Just wanted to play devil's advocate for a bit. I wasn't actually disagreeing with you or anything.
I know.
Just wanted to see how you would answer the question.
I wanted to lay it all out, so that way you kind of saw both sides. So I guess, for our next question, so we kind of dibble-dabbled around it, but do you believe there is a limitation or to having too much? I think we kind of talked about it, but are there?
Yes, you can have too much.
Do you want to expand on it?
In my opinion, you can definitely have too much, but it all definitely depends on for where you're applying, what type of position you're applying for. You need to know the culture or what they're looking for. And then it just matters on your experience and how much is a lot for you compared to what you're applying for, and how much of it is relevant. And it's really.
Yeah, I would say.
No, go ahead, JB.
Go ahead, Terrence.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say my last point on that subject was it really matters to how you organize it. You don't have to put it doesn't have to take a third or fourth of the page for each position. You can also couple like all of the programs that you programmed in the past, all the programming languages that you've utilized in the past could be in a section. Each of the, like, if you want to do it by project, they could all be in like in a certain area. So it's really about how you organize and utilize the space on the paper. And I definitely wouldn't try to come up with my own format. I would go online and look at the formats, because people have, like, this is their job to really like format and look at resumes, and a lot of them have templates out there. And so I would definitely utilize, okay, how can I tell my story within this one page, or how can I tell my story within these 2 pages? I think 2 pages is acceptable. I think when you get over 2, it's like, chill out.
Yeah. I can agree with that.
Yeah, I definitely believe there are limitations. Like, even if like you find your niche and like everything that's on your resume is in this one particular section, it still can become overwhelming when it's like, oh, I'm flipping through pages to find out more about you, when you can just like we've already had our episode on soft skills, and so you're going to need those during that interview. And so why not just give the interviewer like the opportunity to, have that conversation with you to find out more about what other types of things you do. Because even though they have your resume in front of you, they're like, oh, so is there anything else that, you feel that you may deem relevant to this particular position that you've done? And then you can bring it on then. Just because, like I said, it's a lot of those people, they just skim the resumes. It's like, we're looking for someone who knows this, and we're looking for someone that knows that type of thing. And then they get you in there, and they want you to tell the story behind what you know.
And to be honest, with like developer roles in general, how many years of experience do you have? Because they'll use that as a potential filter. And then what language do you have history on? Or then they'll just look at your GitHub repo, and then then the final filter would be the technical interview. So you can say that you worked on all these places and you can list those, but I don't see how that fits in. That really doesn't fit into 2 pages. That's really 1 page, and that's going to help. Like, how many years of experience does this person have? What's their online presence? Where have they worked at in the past? And then what programming languages do they have? And then, like, I feel like for a developer, it's easy to do that within 2 pages for sure. 1 is definitely possible.
Right. I mean, I could totally see if you want to list more of your positions, but also kind of limit in what you, like I think JB mentioned earlier, kind of like simplify what you put up there, because there is that case too that you get into an interview and you really like specify everything to that opportunity, and then like when they do actually you have more and you start expanding on stuff that's not on your resume, you might get that look from the person like, well, why isn't that listed here? Like, how come it wasn't there? And so like I know sometimes that can be kind of discouraging too, because you're just like, well, somebody told me that I had to have a page, so I stayed within that constraint.
That's also about, how your phrasing of what you say back to that question.
True.
Oh, why wasn't this, information on your resume? Because I wanted to give us a chance to have a, real dialogue about, things I've done and how it may relate to what you guys have going here. Then you're selling yourself at that point. And so, because they also want to see how well you can sell yourself. It doesn't sound good, but that's essentially what you're doing, is selling yourself to say, pick me, type thing. So, yeah.
True. I guess I said what I said because I guess I've seen it where it's been both ways. Where like if you're at like a conference or a career fair, like you want to kind of hand out basically like a one sheeter, just to kind of like have everything all in one place. So when they're break you out from everybody else, like they were able to skim through, see what you had, see what you offered, and boom, know whether to move forward. But I also kind of know that like there are some people who are still out there who, kind of want to know the whole story. And I know it's like you got to pick and choose your battle. I think, the common thing is that you should keep it to like 2 pages. But, there are some people who are probably like, well, why didn't you, give us all of that? And I mean, I think that's what messes us up, because it should be a standard. And I think most people kind of stick to the same standard, but then you will come across people who apply for jobs and
those few outliers.
yeah, and it's like that's a whole lot of stuff. Like I wish they didn't put that much.
And to be honest, at these conferences, there's another thing. Like you can be creative too, because these recruiters they're techie and stuff too. You can give them a business card and have your information on the front and then a QR code on the back, so they could and now you can just take a picture with your phone and it just goes to your website, and your website it's like it should tell your whole story. Like we're not even counting pages there. It's just describing you and your brand.
Dang it, Terrence, you took my. I was about to say that.
You can say it again.
I've seen that a lot. And
say it again.
This is a burn moment.
Oh, we're ready.
Oh, I would like to thank you, JB, for those horns. They were amazing last episode.
You're here to find us
very nice.
The enhancements, take us to the next level.
There you go.
But yeah, like at those recruiting events, they are getting handed hundreds of resumes, if not thousands, depending on how big that particular event is. And so if you can be that standout candidate, just, hey, here's my card, even if it's not a QR code, just at least having your web page on there to say, this is my page, this is the information that you can find out about me, and just go from there. Because then it's hosted on your website. So it doesn't matter how many pages you have or how long it is. And if you set up your web page right, it won't even feel like they went through pages worth of a resume. But that's also about you doing the right type of design stuff. And that's a whole nother topic. But yeah.
Right. So I guess, okay, so to kind of add, I guess, a spin or, to kind of, further the discussion, do you believe there are times that you are overqualified, or are there times where you feel like you don't have enough?
Both.
When I was applying for internships in college, I wanted to put more real life experiences, but I was applying for internships, and so I needed to just recalibrate my thinking and say, hey, your extracurricular activities and other things that you were volunteering and doing within school matters at that point, and your GPA matter at that point for internships.
Yeah.
And then when you first graduate to get that job, if you don't already have that job, you really just have to bang on that internship. And if you're in school, you must do an internship. It is like critical you really need to do an internships while you're in school.
Yeah.
I know everyone wants to have time where they're out and having fun during the summer. It's way better if you're having a paid technical internship, and you'll probably be able to do a lot more cooler things. You just have to do them on the weekends.
I like that.
Yeah.
That might actually be another episode, in the making, that we have to, maybe we talk about like the steps of college and
summer vacation versus internship.
Yeah. Or, just kind of like the experiences that we wish we had taken advantage of, or, like seek more into, it could be something that we add on to later on or expand on. But that's pretty good. How about you, JB? What you think?
Well, the reason I said both is because of the fact that, number one, if I feel like I'm overqualified for a position, I'm probably not going to apply for it, just because it won't be interesting to me. And so it won't be beneficial to anyone if I was to, go into certain positions for that. But for the ones that, I feel like I'm not quite enough, well, now I have a challenge. If I know at least a little something about something, well, if you give me the opportunity, then I know I can excel at it. Or maybe I do my background work before I even get to said interview. Like, before I even hit the apply button, I'm like, all right, well, let's go ahead and start up, ramp this thing up. Let's see what we can learn, and then you apply. And then by the time you get to that interview process, it's like, I don't really have a lot of experience with it, but during, this time that I waited for, the call back, I've been able to do such and such, because now it shows that you've taken the initiative to even read up on what it is that they want. And so that also helps you out. So, yeah.
I can see that. I can totally see that. Yeah, I think for sure that you bring up a good point. Like if you see an opportunity that you really are interested in and that you really want, but let's say you just don't have the credentials to get it, that is a kind of a good time to start reflecting on, how can you obtain that information? If it's a cert that you need, what do you need what are the proper steps to, get that cert, whether it be you need prerequisite certs or so forth. So but kind of like mapping out kind of a plan, and I think that might be good for like anybody, like kind of your career. If you're in a position now where you don't really know where you want to go, or you might have an idea where you want to go, kind of seek out and look for those opportunities that are similar to what you want to do, and kind of see what kind of credentials that you need to build on so that you could do those, whether on the side or even, asking your current employer, are there opportunities for you to learn, said topic or tool kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah. So if you all had to give, I guess, one big takeaway for the developers to take from this episode and gear it towards what their goals and their ambitions in regards to building up their resume, I think, like Clarence, what would you think the biggest takeaway would be for you as far as like advice?
So I definitely think learn as much as you can, learn as much as you want to know. Definitely, we are a lifelong learner, so don't be afraid to pick up a new tool. Don't be afraid to pick up a new language. Kind of standing now, see what's new, see what's out there, see how it relates to what you already have. And I mean, like, if you're in a good position, you really love it, you see the growth, and everything is pretty much set in stone. That's fine and dandy, but at the same time, there's still an outside world, and there's so much to learn, so much to grasp. And even if you're in that that good spot, learning those extra tools, you just never know when you might get that call and that you need that at your current position. So kind of getting ahead of the curve and kind of knowing something before anybody has already touched it. You already have kind of claimed your spot as the SMED, as they would say. So definitely learn as much as you want.
Tense?
SMED, subject matter
expertid.
SMED. I've heard SMED so many years, it kind of stuck. But yes, SMED.
He put a D on it. JB, what would be your Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say. So JB, what would be your one big word of advice as far as developers and utilizing the resume process?
Big takeaways is make sure you pick and choose, what information or what's the story that you want to tell with your resume, I should say. And actually take up the opportunity to have a professional resume person look at that resume, because, they've had a chance to look at, quite a few resumes. And so they've seen what looks good, what works well, from interview to interview. And since we're technical people, you probably want a technical resume person, not just, a general person who's like a paralegal. Nothing against paralegals, but their field is very different from the tech space. And so it may be like, well, what's this? What does this mean? And now you've just spent your whole, hour long of going through your resume of just explaining everything that's on your resume to someone, as opposed to them already knowing, understanding what's going on. And so, yeah, those are my main things. It's just pick and choose and make sure you know the story that you want to tell.
That's true. I do have one thing to add to kind of what JB's point, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, but as Terrence said, building that web page, maybe spending some time on expanding your LinkedIn or your GitHub, your repo, like anything like that, like, because again, that adds to your story. When you are in the middle of kind of like explaining yourself to somebody, sometimes they actually need to see it, not just hear it. So having those things on the side, or at least kind of have, like, I guess those are like advantages that yourself, when you're talking with your potential employer and that kind of thing.
All right, T-Man, you give us your spiel and then close us up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The only thing for me is I would say know what position you're going for. Make sure you're not just putting what's in the job description. You're not just putting those keywords in your resume, but you actually know those things, and that is a good technique. But it's a good technique when you actually know those technologies. This whole process, even if you do fool people, you're not going to fool them for a career, right? So you're gonna go in, and then they're gonna see that you don't know what you're supposed to know. Most of the times now, though, they will filter you out throughout that process, and you just won't get the job. But make sure that you do see the keywords in there. If you don't know them, you can work on projects to make sure that you're comfortable putting that on your resume. I've had technologies that I've had on my resume for years, and then I've ended up taking them off because it's just been so long since I've used them that I didn't even feel comfortable putting them back on there. And then if I felt like I needed to keep them on there, they were just programming languages that I just replaced with other programming languages. And it was just one of those things where, could I go back and know it? Yes, I could, but I didn't want somebody to try to give me a technical interview around that programming language just because I wasn't as fresh. I have language that I know that I do for technical interviews that it's just my go-to. All the different type of interview questions are centered around that programming language. And then I have my computer science background where I know the data structures point. So if it's abstract and it doesn't matter, I can apply that to any different programming language. And so make sure, it's good to put those keywords in there. Just make sure it's truthful and you feel comfortable with being asked questions around that. And then just making sure your layout is clean. Make sure it's clean. I think it's better to be clean than it is to have everything in the world on there and it not be clean. Be clean to the point. Whatever's on those first few lines, make sure that they can read those first two sentences and have a general idea about you. And so make sure that kind of like summary statement is even shorter than an elevator speech. It's literally high impact words, how it describes you, what you're bringing to the table. And keep applying. Like if you're looking for a job, keep applying as many places. LinkedIn you're not limited to pages there. I don't believe it's really just your whole career. As much as you want to put on there, you can put on there. You can even write about certain topics and then people will reach out to you. So I think we're in one of the greatest times to where the resume and the pages, people don't a lot of recruiters don't even need to go to that. They're going out and actively recruiting who's in their face as far as what their brand is. Twitter is big. Your Twitter could be your resume a lot of times. The Twitter description and what you say, what you're passionate about. If you're in the tech field, Twitter is actually a great way to get connected with other people in the field. It's a lot of other kind of like I guess people are going to other developers. Different. What do you say, JB?
No, I was just saying a lot of other companies are finding their developers on, and it's all about you engaging with those key people at those particular companies and things. That's not to say you go seek out the CEO, but you may find someone who has. Right. So as soon as you said dog, my dog started growling over here. That was pretty funny. So Twitter, GitHub, clean website, clean resume, and go out there and get it. Don't be afraid to go the indirect route too, to where somebody points you to a job opening rather than you going to a job opening not knowing anyone. I love it when people point you to a job opening and say, hey, you should check this out.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. All right. Well, a lot of great points served today. We discussed a good amount of stuff. Before we do kind of go into closing, I noticed a hoodie, some swag that we received. Did you want to drop your? Did you want to show everybody your hoodie?
So last episode, Raven said that she was gonna send us hoodies, and she kept her word. And I think I look real nice in it.
Can't wait to get mine.
I know I'm looking
it's
forward
nice
to
and
mine.
Comfortable.
Looking forward.
You guys check out Sim's design.
Y'all had the tracking information. Was I supposed to get mine today? Or tomorrow?
I think it was individual to the tracking info. So you might want to just double check to see if you got an email.
Or she might have just left you out.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true. That would suck, but we hope that you get your swag.
He got long arms. He don't need one.
Mine will be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I know mine's coming tomorrow. But so shout out to Sims Design. Thank you for the swag, and again, we appreciate the interview. But other than that, so I think so. On the end of this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and
ring that bell.
Ring the bell.
Brings in the Christmas spirit already.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Dev community. Thank you for listening to another episode of Dev Like Us. I'm Clarence.
JB.
And I'm Terrence.
All right.
See y'all next time.